Welcome to another episode of Your Wise Self with Sara. I'm Sara Clute-Bain, and I am so honored to be here today with my guest, Analena Fuchs. She is part of Your Wise Year, and she's going to be presenting a masterclass on September 2nd at 7 p.m. Central. Analena is an intuitive human design and gene keys guide who helps conscious leaders stop people-pleasing and step into their authentic power. As a creator of the Human Design Teacher Certification, the Genius Coins, and the host of the True Sidereal Summit, she's known for her unique, holistic approach using True Sidereal Astrology, teaching people to read their charts as a complete story, not isolated parts. With 4 years of podcasting and a growing community of practitioners, Analena guides entrepreneurs to trust their natural gifts, make deeply aligned decisions, and build businesses where purpose and prosperity flow together. Today, Analena is going to present to us more information about True Sidereal and what it is she exactly does. And what I love about how Analena has approached this is initially when she came into Your Wise Year in the masterclass, she was going to talk about the money purpose paradox. But what she has found over the last few months is that she's really shifted and wants to speak authentically from where she is at today. So we're going to learn more about True Sidereal, and she's going to piece together this money purpose paradox and how this played into her decision to be more authentic and be present in terms of what she wants to present, what it is that she's most passionate about. So welcome, Analena. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Hey, Sarah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me and embracing my own changes and pivots that I am going through.
Well, let's hear about it. Let's dive right into tell us who you are, a little bit about your background, how you came to be a human design practitioner, and we'll get into all the details about this shift that you made literally from, it's kind of funny that you have the shift method also. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. So tell us a little bit more about yourself first.
I'm a multi-passionate person, have always been since I was a little child. I remember that. And I went on the traditional path, working in corporate and everything. And at some point, I was really drawn to working more with humans. And then coaching came into my space. And I did that, health coaching actually for a while, life coaching, business coaching. And then I also was very drawn to, the big questions we have in life, what's happening up in the sky, and God, the divine, the spiritual aspect. And so energetics was always a very, really big term for me. And after I did a lot of more somatics work as well, I found human design. I always say like human design found me. I think it was just meant to be. I wasn't really looking for anything at the time. And I had such a profound experience with that because it made me realize that it's okay to be multi-passionate. There's nothing wrong with me, right? We're all meant to be different. Because as also a traditional people pleaser for the most part, I was always trying to fit in and be more like others. And I think that never works because we were created by God in a very, very unique way. And just like you have your own talents and gifts and things that we think we're weird, I have that too. And everybody that's probably listening right now,
Yeah.
and we're always on this quest to change who we are. And I think that just is the opposite of living our purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to fix anything. I think we just have to fully and unapologetically embrace who we already are.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's kind of hidden underneath this layer of conditioning.
Absolutely.
There's one analogy from one of my mentors. He always uses that. It's like the Michelangelo like sculpture, right? Like we are the Michelangelo within the stone, but we're kind of hiding. But it's like chiseling away what is not who we are, rather than adding on more things that disconnect you from who you already are on the inside. And for some reason, human design was this big aha moment for me. Everything clicked. And It was also the system is very complex, and for some reason, it came very easy to me. It was almost like I remembered something that I already knew, and I didn't even
Mhm.
know where it was coming from. So yes, I studied, I took a lot of certifications, and eventually now I have my own certification, right? But it came very easily and effortlessly to me. I have to be honest about that part. And I knew also very early on that I'm here to teach it because besides knowing I was multi-passionate, since I was in high school, I always knew that I want to be a teacher. But I think it wasn't the regular like school teacher thing.
Right. Right.
It's more in the realm of human design.
Right. Well, and as you're talking, I'm so grateful that I found you. And through my own story of just piecing together what you're saying, I feel like human design found me also. And it was around 2013, 2014. And it was at a time where I needed to, I think, understand myself a little bit better and exactly what you're saying, be okay with who I was. Because I think in a world that's telling us all the time to be something else that we're not or different, it is so important to just allow people space. And the multi-passionate part, that was part of it, was I've always been multi-passionate. I would find something I love to do or very highly interested me, and I would dive into it. And then, it might be a year later and I was like, "Meh, that's not of really of interest to me anymore," or I move on to the next step if there's kind of a way to build and grow from that. Um, and then so yeah, being authentic to ourselves. So I learned about human design, learned about my human design, informally coached for a number of years. And then it came full circle back to me in 2025. And I made myself a promise that I wanted to get certified officially and finally, and literally went out to AI and was like, okay, this is the type of teacher I want that's been trained from Karen Parker and has their own certification. And there were only two options, and one of them was you. And I was so pleased to have met you because I think that everything aligns with the way you teach and how you're authentic to it, how you were originally a coach yourself. And then, like you said, this has just been something that's come very naturally to you. And I feel that and I sense that in all aspects of every time I'm listening to you or learning from you, it's very clear that it's just something that you're so passionate about. And it does come so easily for you to coach people in human design. And so I'm excited to share with the audience more about what it is you do, what human design is, and have us talk a little bit more about the traditional versus the true sidereal, which is very new to a lot of people as well.
Human design, in my own words, I would say, is like a mirror because it keeps reflecting back parts about yourself that oftentimes we reject and we try to, I don't know, make them go away in
Mm,
some way, right? And it's all about reminding you that you are perfect the way you are. And yeah, of course, we keep evolving and improving over time, but at the core, you were created by God perfectly
hmm.
with all the flaws, right? Because in this, especially on social media, we have these ideals that we easily compare ourselves with. And I think what really makes a person unique is when they stand out
Yeah.
in their quirkiness, in their like one of the things with me is I do change my mind a lot. But I have learned to own this over the years. Just like we got on this podcast recording 20 minutes ago, and I told you, like, hey, I need to change the topic.
Yeah.
Because I would be lying to myself, to you, and to your audience, and that would be felt energetically. And I really believe that I'm not being of the fullest service to everybody here and not living my purpose if I'm not speaking my truth.
Right. Right.
Okay. So living your purpose has a lot to do with truth and honesty.
Well, and I want to clarify too that I mean, the money purpose paradox is about the shift method, and it's been part of your program of like teaching people about this through human design and in a various different ways. So, I mean, I would love for us to take a little bit closer look at what that is. But I think to your point is that what you're teaching people is to be authentic to themselves. So you showing up today feeling like you were coming in on a topic that you're like, this isn't what I'm really passionate about right at this moment. I'm more passionate about and solely teaching from a human design and true sidereal space, and that felt authentic to you. So I think that that's such a beautiful lesson in and of itself to the audience right away, that people can own that, and that if you change your mind, to not feel guilty about it, and life has a way of working itself out. That's why I was like, scrap the notes, no big deal. We're going to do this and it will be beautiful, and it will be exactly what people need to hear this message.
Yeah, and I think you will also all notice it's all connected to the money purpose paradox, because when we are living our most authentic self, well, we are not trying to chase a purpose, because I think that's also something that keeps a lot of people stuck. But we think that our purpose is a specific job title or thing that we do, but your purpose is rather fully expressing. So I call this authority expansion, where you're fully being your most authentic self, where you're not compromising, where you're not holding back
Right.
because you want to please others. And often this comes from a fear of rejection. And then what we do? We reject ourselves. And I think that disconnects us from our purpose. And I do believe that money always keeps reflecting that back to us. So if somehow money is not flowing in the way that, we think is most natural for us, or sufficient, then I think we have to look at ourselves and like, where am I not being honest with myself? Where am I disconnected from my truth? And I continue to go through these phases where I need to pivot, I need to change.
Right.
And that is often not easy to do, because we live in a world where there's so many expectations, and we're like, I have to like stick to this and force myself through it. And sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes we need to overcome the resistance within us, especially when we also expand and do new things. It takes time, this as a coach, to build a habit, right? But there's also a point where we have to be honest and admit, like, this is not a line for me. This is not my path. And I don't know exactly what my path looks like. And the big thing that human design has taught me, and this is like a universal teaching, no matter what type of human design we're using, and we'll get to the true sidereal in a little bit, that it's about following the breadcrumbs of the universe. So if you feel lost right now, you feel in this huge void or this pivot, which, mind you, could take a few weeks, it could take a few years.
Right.
I myself have been in a pivot phase for the last year and a half, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it's not that I haven't done anything, right? But I have let go of a lot of stuff that I used to do and I'm no longer available for. And sometimes there is also then less money for quite some time, because sometimes we need to learn to trust life. And I always learn that money often and always comes also in the most unexpected ways.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we have to really own our thoughts too. And I think that's what you were
Yeah.
saying and all of that too, is that if we're thinking something, there's an energetic code behind that too, of that if we are going to think negatively or think that it's never going to work out, then that's what's going to happen, versus trusting the universe that it will provide. Just stay true to yourself and continue to bring opportunities to you. And that kind of plays into some of the energetic ways that people can understand their energy through human design too, which we'll get more into that. But yeah, I think that it really makes sense. And like you said, you've changed, it sounds like, because you've been a coach for like 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, when you reflect back, you probably have gone through a few little evolutions of Analena as a coach, and then into human design, and then true sidereal. If you wouldn't mind actually even just going back to explain to the audience what human design is, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think I started with a mirror. And so in human design, we have these 5 types. I think that is what most people are familiar with: the manifestor, the generator, manifesting generator, reflector, and projector. And that is a very broad generalization, which is often very, very helpful people as a first access point. And the human design chart is based on some astrological calculations at the time of your birth, and also about 88 days before you were born. So it brings in the conscious soul print and also the unconscious soul print, which is very unique because astrology only looks at the time of your birth typically, right? And especially as a coach, I think many know that our unconscious, subconscious plays kind of a big part. It's that 95 to 98% that's really running the show. And so it's an energetic blueprint that shows you what is normal for you, also how you tend to make decisions. It's not a recipe that's telling you how to make all decisions, because every decision is different, right? Sometimes we have major big life decisions. Sometimes it's those in the moments, right? Where like you have to make a very quick decisions. But especially for big decisions in life, human design can be extremely, extremely helpful, because some people are really good making decisions on their own in a much quicker way. Other people need to be around a lot of other people and take more time to make big decisions, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of nuances in the chart. And then also, yes, you can be the same type. And we also have profiles in human design that also tells you a lot about your character, about how you show up in the world, how you tend to connect with others.
Mm-hmm.
And again, shows you how we're all meant to be different, and nothing is right and nothing is wrong. It's just this.
Right.
And it's about you fully embracing that nature.
Right.
And I think the decision-making part is, I think, the most helpful, because that's something I used to struggle with, where I didn't listen to myself. I didn't trust myself. And I was like, no, I have to make decisions like this person is telling me to do, right? Rather than listening to ourselves. So human design always brings you back home to yourself. And the other big distinction, which takes a lot of time, I find, is that the mind is not here to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what most of us have been trained, right? Like, what's logic? What makes sense? No, your mind is actually here to ask powerful questions and, of course, to analyze and, geek out on things. But really, the decision-making vehicle that we all have is our body.
Mm-hmm.
And I find so often we're so disconnected. We're so much up here, especially in this age where we have so much information, right? And so what makes my work also very unique with human design is that through the somatic work that I do, for example, including the shift method, I help you bring you back into your body and out of your mind, because human design in itself comes with a lot of information. Oftentimes people get into overthinking it
Mm-hmm.
and are really stuck in their head, and then it doesn't really work, because human design is not meant to be a mental tool. And so I distill it really to what matters in a person's chart, which is going to be very unique. Like when I look at your chart, for example, and we have a session, and I think you know this by now, I'm not going to throw at you all the information that I see in your chart, because that may feel cool in the moment, but you're not going to walk away with a practical thing to take action on.
Right.
It's rather, I tune into your energy very intuitively. It's almost like the human design chart activates my intuition.
Yeah.
And then I just share those few things that I find are really relevant for you. There are often things that I see in a chart that stand out. That can be a particular energy center. It can be a particular gate, or like a theme I see in your chart. And I love this because every session is different,
Right.
you know? So yeah, it's an incredible tool. And it is this ongoing feedback that it keeps reflecting things back to you that
Mm-hmm.
help you trust yourself at a deeper level.
Yeah.
And at some point, so I'm in my experiment with human design in my 7th year, and there's also cycles with human design. In the very beginning, you're probably going to spend a lot of time and you have your readings and you geek out on things. And at some point, it kind of goes down a little bit where you start to trust yourself more. And it's almost like when you start to ride a bicycle, you first have the training wheels.
Yeah.
And at some point, and that's my goal for everyone, that you don't need it anymore,
Right.
right? Because when you trust yourself, you're connected to that divine guidance that's always available.
Yeah.
It did its job, right? So yeah, because I don't want anybody to be dependent on any system or anything. But at the same time, I think God gave this tool to us so we can remember the
Mm.
uniqueness and the power within us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Annalena. And the correlation of what I'm doing as a health coach and the importance to me to be able to provide this to my coaching clients, the way you're approaching it is somatics And for me, it's from my yoga therapy training, which of course plays into somatics.
Yeah.
But in yoga therapy, we have something called the koshas. And the koshas are the layers of the self. So it starts with like our physical body, and then it goes into the pranayama, like our breath body, and then our mental, emotional body. And then it goes into these deeper layers that are like the bliss body and this kind of like all knowing and understanding that we are whole and that we operate from a place of values. And so it's interesting because I actually position my coaching very much like that because we start with, okay, how are you moving? How are you eating? How are you taking care of your physical body? And then we continue to move into like mindfulness and meditation and then that mental emotional body, but also really tuning into their values. And then those last few sessions that I typically work with a client, I'm bringing in the human design chart. And this is like the cherry on top to be able to provide to them that remembering, that mirror, that understanding of being okay with who you are. And so the easiest example is what you were talking about making decisions, is that most people are emotional decision makers, which means that they take time to make decisions. And
Mhm.
somebody who's a gut responder or a sacral responder who makes decisions quickly, they can find that almost frustrating about another person. So I think the other big thing that I'm teaching people, and that maybe you feel the same way too, is just like teaching people compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion for themselves, compassion for the other, because we start to realize that we're not built the same and that that's okay. Again, to your point from the very beginning of this is be authentic to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, compassion is a huge role of human design. You could call it it's a tool of compassion when we
Yeah,
use it in that way. Absolutely.
definitely. Yeah. So thank you for the background on human design and what it is and what it means to you and to sharing it with the world. So next would be this transition that you had. You stumbled into True Sidereal.
Mhm.
So would you tell us a little bit more about what True Sidereal is and how it plays into human design?
Yes. So human design, as you probably know it, and I think the majority today, what you find online in the internet, is based on tropical astrology. And tropical astrology is really what the sky looked like over 2000 years ago. This is something we will go deeper into the masterclass. I will show some graphics so everybody understands this. And one of my students, I think it was 3 years ago, we had a call and she was like, hey, can we talk about sidereal astrology? And I'm very open minded. I actually love to learn new things. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, why don't you teach us? So she taught us about it and I loved it. It was the first time that astrology actually resonated with me because tropical astrology, like, I'm a Aquarius sun, a Gemini moon, but it was kind of, yeah, okay. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is me to the T at all.
Mm.
And there were also some things in my tropical astrology chart that were kind of like, "Eh, not really."
Yeah.
Now, human design, I have to say my tropical human design was extremely helpful. It also brought out the multi-passionate through the manifesting generator archetype. But then there were other things in the chart I couldn't fully agree to. But at the time, I wasn't really aware of it, that I was trying to fit myself into it. So when I had this realization with True Sidereal Astrology, it was first Sidereal, and then I found this True Sidereal, which was created by Shementi. It's literally what I always thought astrology was, but I didn't know any better. When you look up in the sky, when you use your visible eyes, that's what you see.
Right.
Where the planets are in what constellations. And what I realized is that we don't have, like in tropical, we have 12 even signs. It's like this perfect 12 slice pie. That's not
Right.
what nature looks like. We
Right.
actually have 13 constellations, including Ophiuchus, and they're very different in size. There's more variety. And I have always been a person that I love and appreciate variety.
Hmm.
And so, Pisces is very big, Virgo is very big, but then Aries is very small, Scorpio is super small. And I was like, huh, okay, this feels more real.
Right.
Of course, it's easier, more convenient to have everything perfect, the same.
Yeah.
Everything in me is always about authenticity. And nature, I think, is the most authentic reflection we can have,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And nature is not stagnant. Nature is not cookie cutter in any way or form.
Okay.
So also then I looked up my True Sidereal Astrology and I shifted to Capricorn, Taurus moon, Scorpio rising, and I was like, okay, now we're talking. And the biggest shift was I shifted from mostly air signs, a trine in air signs, to earth signs. And I
Mm,
always was like, I'm such an earthy person. People always tell me I feel so grounded. That's probably the number one feedback I get left and right.
yeah,
And my True Sidereal was just like, yeah,
confirm that.
totally confirming it, right?
Yeah.
I also have a lot of air because I love to communicate and talk, but I found it in different placements, like my North Node, um, and I'm a third house in my sun. So it was just in more subtle placements that felt more true who I am.
Sure.
And then I was like, okay, so if this now changes because tropical astrology is going too fast. So
Mhm.
if I'm telling you today, and this is just, let's take an example, it doesn't have to be what's really up in the sky. If I'm saying like, oh, we have a full moon in Capricorn,
Mhm.
let's say tropical astrology is saying that, most likely in the real sky is in Sagittarius. It's in the sign before.
Right.
Because there is something called a precession of the equinoxes, which means every about 72 years, there's a 1 degree shift,
Right.
kind of like a slowing down, where the sun, let's say the sun or any planet is,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit delayed. It's not at the exact point. So Aries is not at 0 degrees at the spring equinox anymore. It was 2000 years ago. If
Right.
you look into the sky now in 2026, 2027, you're going to see Aries at the spring equinox. The sun is deep in Pisces.
Mhm.
And I think for a lot of people, this can be a little bit of a shock. And I'm going to tell you right now, your sun sign is most likely different than
Right.
what we have been learning. The sun sign, so where the sun was actually in the sky when you were born. And I mean, that's what it means. So now, because I'm a very mathematical person, I always loved math growing up, and I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, in my True Sidereal, like a whole stellium. I like to find where the penny is off.
Right.
And I was like, okay, that means we also must have a shift in the human design chart because it must be a different gate. There must be like a difference.
Yeah.
And then I discovered that I wasn't the only person thinking that. There were already people, I think in 2020, they started working with this first. And then I found a bunch of YouTube videos. I went down the rabbit hole and I was like, yeah. And there was already software out there. It wasn't perfect because it was a little bit hard to create your chart at the time. There was some manual work involved.
Yeah.
But then I connected with the astrologer, Ethan Shimenti, the True Sidereal Astrologer. He was already doing it for 10, 12 years, the True Sidereal Astrology.
Wow.
And I trained with him to get a deeper knowledge of True Sidereal Astrology. And then it became my mission
Mhm.
to offer True Sidereal human design charts in an easy way for people.
Sure.
And now, 2.5 years later, it has become reality. You can pull it on my website. I worked with the people that call Bodygraph to implement this. There's also some manual solutions you can still use. And we had an update with the calculations this past year that were implemented. So it was very exciting to be part of this evolution because it was already started by other people. Like I wasn't the first one, but I felt so called to keep refining it and, make it more accessible to people. So what happens when you use these true sidereal calculations for human design, your chart changes.
Right.
Your type may or may not, but very likely can change. Your profile can change, the gates that are activated. Now, what stays the same is the relation of the planets to another. So the pattern, like, when you have a pattern in your astrology chart, like if it's an opposition, if it's a trine, and that pattern you see is still the same, but it shifted.
Okay.
It kind of about 30 degree moves back.
Yep. Yep.
And so that whole geometric pattern in the sky stays the same, but because it shifted, it picks up different gates. And the gate that I activated in the human design chart, that's what distinguishes what is defined and undefined in your chart, and what this means for people that have never heard this. Like what you see colored in, right, is defined. What is white is undefined.
Right.
And that then determines if you are a certain type
Mhm.
in the human design chart.
Yeah.
And when I saw my chart, it just felt also much more true to who I was at the time. And one thing that is very important for me, I'm not here to say one is right or wrong,
Right.
because I think that tropical has been such a beautiful foundation. It was life changing for me personally.
Absolutely.
And then I experienced some limitations. So it feels like tropical was kind of who I was,
Right.
a little bit similar to South Node energy.
Yeah.
And then my true sidereal is this more calm and grounding essence of who I am. And there's nothing to fix anymore, because when I was with tropical, I always felt like I'm missing something still. I was still on this energy of searching.
Yeah.
And it's like the true sidereal is this, it's not a destination in the sense of like, oh, we're done. It's more like that's what I'm here to fully express out into the world,
Mhm.
without shame, without guilt, without fear of rejection, just like being who I was created to be. It feels more pure, like this North Node energy. And it's also, it gets you more out of your comfort zone. And yeah, I have a lot more to say, but I think
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
make a stop here. See.
Yeah. Well, and
Oh,
I would just, yeah, I would love to just like even recap this because some people are listening to this for the first time and not maybe quite understanding what all this means. So I would just want to like take a moment to summarize that basically my understanding too, and the way you described it is that a couple thousand years ago, that the way astrology was set up, it was started at the spring equinox, 0 degrees of Aries, and basically the signs change every 30 degrees. So then that makes up the perfect 12 kind of pieces of pie that we see in like a mandala when people look at their chart. So far so good?
yeah.
Okay, so then what you're saying is that over time that there's been this shift. I don't remember what you called it, the equinox,
Yeah, the precession of the equinox.
precession of the
So
equinox.
where the sun actually is at in the sky
Yep.
at the spring equinox, it slightly shifts. From one year to another, like it's not visible, but 1 degree every 72 years.
Right.
Now, over 2,000 years, it's almost the whole sign difference what we see in the
Right.
sky.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so that's the shift. So then there's two parts to this. So people could see that their astrology sign could be different as a result of this. And then because we use birth data in human design to run people's charts, it also changes their chart from what it originally was. So there has to be, like you said, there were some calculations made to be able to help make this shift to be able to see that new chart under
Mm.
true sidereal or true sky, which makes sense that it's called true sky, true sidereal. I love that. But and I have to say too for myself that my tropical chart very much resonated with me at that point in my life. And I'm getting to know my new chart still and getting acquainted with it. But when you did the reading for me, I felt the exact same way. And that's how I position it with my clients too, who maybe have had a human design reading before or know are very into their astrology, is it might have been very resonant for them in this first part of their life and in that tropical chart might have been very resonant for them. And then now they're kind of getting to see a little bit different viewpoint. And so for me, it was that I felt like a masculine to a feminine energy somewhat because I felt like my tropical chart was very masculine oriented, but that makes sense for that part of my life. Like I was up and running and, working and starting a family and everything was very structure built. And now as I'm heading into 50, I want to feel a little more ease and flow and less worried about the structure, less worry about that structure. So really again, it's hopefully people are understanding that all of it can be true. Like, and I work from a duality standpoint too, and I think you do too, where both can be held true at the same time. There's still aspects of my tropical chart I absolutely resonate with. And there's parts of my new chart, I keep calling it my new chart, my true sidereal chart that I resonate with very much as well. But since I learned this from you, I've been operating from just sharing true sky reports with people, with my clients, and people are resonating with it very much. So I definitely feel like it's landing for people and to help them understand that. But I just wanted to reflect back, like, what that all kind of meant. And then now from here going forward, what does that mean for you as a teacher and a leader in the field? Like, what does this mean for you with True Sidereal and this adventure you're on?
Curiosity is one of the big values I have. And, human design, astrology, Enneagram, there's so many personality tools out there. And I think the big learning lesson is also like none of this has the answer for you. It's always like a gentle guide. And human design also, it can become quite of a dogma when we get too much into this, like, oh, this is this one chart and this is what it's telling us, right?
Right.
And I've seen this with a lot of people, and it often made me sad. And I always had this like more open-minded perspective. I also see like the types in human design very lightly. I actually call them more archetypes. And when you study the chart at a deeper level, especially the gates, you're a blend of all of these types. And oftentimes people get stuck or very limited when they over focus on just the type. The type is such a generalization. And in the beginning of human design, there were no types. It was added on later, I think more for marketing purposes, which I think had its reason and was helpful
Yep.
to draw people in. But then we also have to be careful not to put ourselves into a box, right? And so my mission overall as a teacher to use this in a very flexible, open-minded way so that you actually enhance your self-trust. That's really my overall goal, right? And then if you're there, like you don't need any of that anymore, like I was saying earlier. Um, and I'm not here to tell you like, oh, you need to work with your true sidereal chart because one is right or one is wrong. I'm just sharing another perspective. Like this is a doTERRA essential oil.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at it from here, or I can look at it from here. It looks very different, but it's the same thing. It's also the different charts. It's
Mm-hmm.
a different perspective of you.
Sure.
We are multifaceted beings. It's not just this one way.
Yeah.
And I think we can learn from all of it. And for you right now listening, it's also, I invite you to simply be curious. I have a lot of my students, the majority, I have to say, they're resonate very hard with True Sidereal Human Design. There are others that work with both, tropical and True Sidereal. And you may think right now it's really hard to work with two charts, but that's something that I teach and how to extract themes and similarities in different charts, right? Um, and then also some people, I give my students permission. If you just want to work with tropical, do that. I am not here to tell you what is right to you. I personally work with tropical only for the first 3 years. I heard about sidereal through my teacher, Karen Parker. I wasn't even interested at the time. My body was I don't want to know about it.
Right.
And it changed. At some point, life took me on this unexpected direction. And at first my mind was like, oh yeah, but I can't do it because,
Right.
but I'm like, well, human design is teaching me to trust myself, so I better go for it.
Yeah.
It takes you onto really unexpected territory, but that's really also what in essence this is about really embracing the unknown and trusting these breadcrumbs that, God puts in front of you.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a very flexible, relaxed, open-minded approach. And what I have also noticed with a lot of students that because I take the pressure away
Mhm.
and I don't make human design a dogma, it's a very light way how I deliver it, I feel. I give them the freedom to work with whatever they want to. And I have many people, they first like, I don't resonate with my true sidereal. Like, I'm totally in trouble. I said, that's fine. Work with it. Nothing wrong. And then oftentimes, very shortly later, they come to me and like, Oh my gosh. My True Sidereal chart makes so much sense. That's me to the T,
Yeah.
you know? And some people come to me like 6 months later and they tell me the same thing. I have had this so many times. I'm not here to tell you what your journey looks like or what resonates with you. That is yours. And if you feel drawn to this, you will know this.
Yeah.
You may listen to this right now and be like, not really, or like, oh my gosh, I need to look into this further
Yeah. And you
and
can
trust
know.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And trust that. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the key point there too, is just trusting ourselves more. And I think that that's a thing that human design really does help with as well. And that's why I really appreciate your approach and appreciate who you are, because as a teacher, you are flexible and you're open to both sides, because like you said, you've benefited from the tropical or traditional route, and it doesn't mean that we have to be one or the other. So I'm curious how this translates into our newly revised masterclass. How do you envision the masterclass going, and what do you want to share with the audience who will be there?
Yeah, so I will share more what this difference from tropical to true sidereal really means, because I think sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand without visuals.
Sure.
And then also how it translates into the human design chart, and really help those that are going to watch the masterclass to build this level of trust in themselves, what feels most aligned for their journey. If they're interested either in the true sidereal astrology aspect or human design, like I combine all of it in my work. Astrology, human design has I think the biggest emphasis, but then also gene keys.
Right.
And, to see how this can actually support them on their own unique journey, the transformation that they're looking for. Because so human design can be helpful, yeah, for business, sure, making decisions. I mean, making decisions, like we do this all day long.
Right.
Uh, in your personal life, especially relationships. I have had a lot of clients. I mean, they came for me for business stuff, but we worked really on their relationships,
Yep.
to manifest their soulmate eventually, or improve their existing relationship, or leave a relationship. Like there's so many different aspects you can work on, or and trusting yourself also, it flows into all areas of life, your own health and well-being. And fear of rejection is something we work on a lot. So just when I kind of open up the perspectives for people to see all the things that are possible with human design,
Sure.
especially this true sidereal, because I have found that the more I follow the true sidereal energies in the sky from both human design and astrology, I feel like I align much more to my purpose. That since I have been immersing myself more following the true sidereal transits through astrology and also human design, I feel much more aligned with my purpose. Even though it's not an external thing, it's how you feel on the inside.
Right.
Because it's always this inside outside, because I'm in this process of aligning with nature, and it just takes a lot of letting go and releasing along the journey, and letting go of how we think things should be,
Right.
in our life and our businesses. And I think there's so much magic that can unfold for us when we surrender into, yeah, the beauty and variety and complexity that nature has to offer to us.
Yeah.
And just this feeling, it's almost undescribable for me when you have something like astrology and human design, and this it's like a chart, something on a piece of paper. And then once you learn more about this, you're like, oh my God, like, yeah, this is me. And it's like a homecoming and a sense of peace and relaxation from within yourself that I
Mhm.
think is the foundation for, yeah, everything else to unfold in the most magical ways.
Yeah.
That's available to everyone.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I'm so grateful that we're actually going to talk about this, because I think that this timing of people needing to hear this message is also important. Just kind of like with what's been going on in our world, even the last year or 6, basically since the pandemic. I think there's an unrest or an unease at times for people. And so helping people honor themselves and have this homecoming or this understanding that there is a tool out there that they can tune into and learn more about and feel more confident, feel more stable in who they are, and yeah, and more grounded, to the point of what you were talking about. But it's always fun to learn from you, and I'm excited for the Your Wise Year Masterclass that will be September 2nd at 7 p.m. Central. I have been offering that we have been setting up the master classes as a whole year offering, and people can still access that. But I'm also offering one class price at a time. So if somebody wants to purchase the one class, they can get the live and recorded version of it for just $27 for a small investment to get all this wisdom and knowledge from you, Analena, as a guide and, well, an intuitive guide that's helping us come home to ourselves and have this better understanding of ourselves overall. So on that note, I would love to just know a couple of things personally about you. I think these will be fairly easy for you to answer, but I really appreciate people having tools, resources that can be related to human design or not. But do you have a favorite book that you would suggest to people that is like a must read?
Yeah, there's one particular book. I read it a long time ago now. It's called Letting Go by Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
Because it also goes back. I mean, that is a lot of the somatics work and our emotions, but that is kind of the work that led me. It was before like then human design found me, and I saw how it's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have that book and I'm pretty sure I read it probably years ago. So you're inspiring me to go into my treasure trove of books and pull that back out and take a look at it. But it sounds like even just the title is helpful, of letting go, being able to shed and release that conditioning and those layers that are put upon us throughout our life and embrace who we are at our core. So anything else you wanted to say about the book? I kind of interjected there.
No, it's a really great book.
Yeah,
And it really it doesn't talk about human design per se, but it's highly connected to it.
sure. That makes sense. So, and then I think you've asked me this too on your podcast, but was there one practice or one thing that you do every day that is just like, I have to do this to ground myself, to take care of myself, to be authentic?
Yeah, so I have been really working a lot with gratitude and to really be in an energy of gratitude, not only for the external, but also for myself. That
Right.
that's kind of like a really big thing. And it's just it's doesn't take a long time, but it's really setting the intention to be in a state of gratitude. And just for today, right? It's only just for today and really started. I find that I just see so much more beauty around me and also appreciate myself so much more, which let me tell you, it's been a very long journey and I'm really good at beating myself up and
Mhm.
criticizing, finding the flaws and stuff. So it's yeah, it's an internal shift that happened and it's that consistency. Like don't ever underestimate. And that's what I was saying earlier, like human design is not a quick fix. It's
Mhm.
not this like it's gonna unlock. It's this magic code. Like, no, it's like, what are you doing and who are you being on a daily basis? And it always takes me back to the coaching fundamentals of like, what does it take to change a habit? It's those little micro moments and decisions we make on
Right.
a daily basis, and um, gratitude, don't underestimate gratitude.
Mm.
It's
So
also
true.
one of the energies that many human design gates teach us.
Yeah, absolutely. It is such a good reminder to bring that in on a daily basis. And there's literally scientific proof of the evidence and the energy behind it and how it just helps us spiral up in a very positive way. And I have actually a quote in my modules when I work with clients that says, beating yourself up was never a fair fight. And so I think so many people can relate to that, and that we do have a tendency to do that. And I may be overgeneralizing here, but I think with women especially, and that's primarily who my audience is, listening, that we do to have a tendency to feel like we're not doing enough and we can get in this negative space. So gratitude kind of helps bring things back in perspective and back online. So thank you for sharing those, Analena. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to close with? Otherwise, I'll just wrap it up.
I'm just very grateful for your open-mindedness. I felt very comfortable to let you know I changed my mind, and I feel like it was the right decision. It always is.
Yeah.
And I hope you listeners are inspired to also embrace this, because life is not a linear path, and the most important is to stay true to yourself. And yeah, have the courage to do that. Trust yourself, right? There's a reason. And the final piece I want to add onto this is because when we don't do that, we most often do this because we have fear of rejection in some way, right? We're like, oh, somebody's going to judge me or criticize you. But when you succumb to that and not say something that feels true to you because you're afraid that somebody else may reject you, what is actually happening is that you're rejecting yourself. And with that, you're also rejecting God in a way, right? Because
Yep.
God planted that desire or that sense of truth within you, and he wants you to express that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just a very profound realization for me. So I feel called to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm a Christian, and I always like to preface too, like, and if somebody listening has a different word for God, universe, higher self, just replacing that with that word, but it all has the same meaning. You know, if we're rejecting our higher self, or what the universe is intending for us, yeah, it's all the same in terms of that perspective of just being able to embrace who we are. And I think, I don't know if it's also with age, but I've learned to pivot a lot more in it as I've gotten older, because 99% of the time it works out equally as well or better when you're willing and able to go with the flow, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you for being your authentic self today, Analena. I know that my audience is going to love this conversation. I really hope that people take a closer look at your website, AnalenaFuchs.com, and I will put that all in the show notes for people to get a hold of you, follow you on social media, all the things that people may want to follow up on as well after this conversation. So thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to seeing you September 2nd.
Thanks for having me.
If you felt moved or inspired by this conversation that I had today with Analena, I really encourage you to go follow her on social media, check out her website. Thank you so much today, Analena, for being here, for inspiring our audience to be authentic, to be true to ourselves. And especially in a time when it matters, I just really encourage you to take a deeper look and see how it is that you can be more authentic to yourself today, and also bring in more gratitude today as well. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to Your Wise Self with Sara. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, stay wise.